Hello, and welcome to Managing to Lead Part 3. Today, we're going to talk about this section, which is all about how we can give feedback effectively as a manager. We know that as a manager, one of the most important things that you can do is deliver feedback to your employees, but it's not always easy. So we start and talk about a model, a couple different ways to think about delivering feedback effectively. My name is Brad Karsh. I'm the CEO and founder of JB Training Solutions. Thank you for joining us on our demo. As you may know, this program runs roughly 90 minutes or so. We do it virtually sometimes, we do it in person. And I'm going to give you a little taste of it today, maybe 10 minutes or so to whet your appetite. We're certainly not going to see every single detail of this program, but ideally you'll get a sense for what it's going to be like and determine if it might be right for you and your organization. Let's get into it. We really focus just on two things here. We talk about direction and support, and then we talk about constant contact. So the first one I'm not going to dive too deeply into is all about diagnosing, meaning as leaders and managers, if we've got a performance issue, if we determine that we need to deliver feedback, one of the most important things that we need to do is figure out, is it an issue of skill or is it an issue of will? Skill gets at, do they actually know how to do it? Is someone on your team failing because they don't have the tools necessary? They haven't been taught, they haven't been trained. They don't have, if you will, the direction to do the job effectively. Or is it a will issue, meaning they know how to do it, but for some reason they're demotivated. So maybe they're overwhelmed, or maybe they don't like this assignment that they're working on, or maybe there's some other issue where they need not details on how to deliver the end product, but they need support on how to bring it together. We use a fun example. We talk a little bit about teaching a kid how to ride a bike and the different stages and exactly which one you should use, direction or support, to figure out if it's skill versus will. But at its core, we're going to get a little philosophic with you. We're going to add a little philosophy into this program. And I'm going to give you a Henry David Thoreau quote. And he said, "There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root." Meaning, oftentimes, we're not addressing the core issue, we're just dealing with the symptoms. And figuring out if it's skill versus will, direction or support is really important. So that's section one. Again, we get way into it, details, we talk about specific examples. There's some fun exercise where they have to diagnose if it's a skill or will issue, and we get into it. But what I want to focus on is just a little snapshot of what we're calling constant contact, meaning how do we think about delivering feedback? And there's a bunch of different ways that we can deliver feedback to people. It should be a constant, continual affair. So we talk about day-to-day feedback, we talk about monthly check-ins, and we talk about formal reviews. I'm just going to focus on the first two here and, again, give you a little taste of it as we go into it. So I'm a big fan of delivering feedback on a daily basis. You don't want people coming back 9 months from now saying like, wait, why are you telling me that now? You said I didn't do well in that meeting. Why didn't you tell it to me then? A lot of times, many managers, because they don't like or aren't good at giving feedback, they wait until the last minute. So when we are giving feedback, we want to make sure we're doing it regularly. We think about feedback a lot in terms of constructive feedback, and I will talk about that too, but it's okay if we think about it in terms of praise. So I love this quote from Ken Blanchard: catch someone doing something right. Oftentimes we're really good at catching people doing things wrong, but maybe we should think about catching them doing things right. So we're always on the lookout, and the best way to think about this is in terms of us looking like and acting like a coach. If you're a coach of a team and you've got a team of players, every single time you have practice, every single game, you're probably giving feedback in the moment. You're not saying, hey, listen, at the end of the year, you're not saying, remember that game we had 9 months ago? You really should have passed a little bit more, but you didn't. No, we're going to give that moment. We're going to give that coaching in the moment. And that's what we want to think about when we do it. We'll talk about how to do it in a second, but we want to give it. It could be praise. It could be correction. Remember, catch somebody doing something right. And the key here is that we are very, very specific about it, and we do it quickly. My recommendation is that you should give this day-to-day feedback. When you see something good or bad, the best practice is to try to deliver it within the first 24 hours, okay? The best way to do it is in person. Not everybody's in person now or all the time. The second best way to do it is via a video call, Zoom, Teams, whatever that's going to be. The third best way to do it is over the good old-fashioned telephone. And the fourth way to do it, and I'd argue that you should probably never deliver constructive feedback this way, would be via email. So you don't want to give constructive feedback via email. You want to do it ideally in person, then video, then phone call. How does it look? So let's say, here's a scenario. And again, we can craft these scenarios to whatever works best for your organization. But let's say you've had a direct report that you've encouraged them in some of these one-on-ones or even your monthly meetings to take more initiative. You were just in a meeting where they did most of the analysis, but you were leading the discussion sort of afterwards. They did a lot of the background work. A tough question was asked, and while you were kind of thinking about an answer, they jumped in and answered it and did a really nice job answering it. So remember we said specific? Instead of just saying, hey, great job in that meeting. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's not going to get the goodwill that we want. I'd recommend you say something like, hey, I like how you handle that question in there. Exactly what we've been talking about in some of our one-on-ones and our group chats about taking more initiative. You said what needed to be said, then you let the meeting move on. That's exactly what we were looking for. Perfect job, right? And the rhetorical question is, what do we think will happen from now on? They know that this is important. They know that they've now been recognized for this, so they're just going to do it more and more and more. Now, let's say they didn't take initiative in that meeting and they just sat there while you did most of the discussion or all of the discussion and let it on, and there was a spot they could have jumped in. Then, again, this is the praise part, but the correction part would be, hey, I just wanted to chat about how that meeting went. I thought you did a nice job putting together the analysis. But when some of those questions were asked and I didn't really seem to have the answers at the ready, that would have been a perfect chance for you to display some of that initiative that we were talking about. So moving forward at future meetings, please feel free to jump in, because that's the kind of behavior that we're looking for. Again, I want to do that within 24 hours. I don't want to wait 9 months to do it. Okay, so that's kind of, I call it informal day-to-day feedback. The other form of feedback that we recommend is what I call informal, regularly scheduled feedback, or we call these monthly checkups. So here, sitting down with your team, 20 to 30 minutes, not a huge time commitment, and just talk about how things are going. So I say professional, not personal, meaning it's not like, hey, how's your life going? What'd you do this past weekend? By the way, those are great conversations to have, but these should be focused and dedicated on what's going on at work. And here's the important part thing. They should be relationship-based, how things are going based, not task-focused. This is not a status meeting. So I'm not going to sit down and say, hey, can you give me an update on Project Thunder? What we're talking about here are things like, hey, how do you think things have been going the last month? What's been going really well? What might you be struggling with? How can I support you more? Here are a few things I've seen that I want to reinforce, some positive things and some constructive things. These are informal. What's working, what's not working. Again, not an update on projects. Given the virtual world that we live in, it's sometimes a little bit more difficult to do these things. So if you are a company that is entirely virtual, you have to make sure that you are intentional about scheduling the time to do these. There's no report card for any of these things. There's no grade for those. That's the formal review that you might do semi-annually or annually. These are just more informal, regularly scheduled checkups. 20 to 30 minutes. You're not writing down anything. You don't have to write down anything in advance. You're not getting anything, a score, like I said, afterwards, but you're just checking. It helps them understand that you care about them. We talk in this program about how to deliver these, what kinds of things you should say, what kind of things you shouldn't. We've got some examples galore and exercises all packed within it, but this is a wonderful 90-minute class that really helps people understand the essence, especially newer managers, of giving feedback. Few key takeaways. Regular feedback helps keep people engaged. You want to determine if the root issue is a skill or a will issue, in which case you need to understand if you have to deliver direction, support, both, or sometimes neither. And then these one-on-one meetings help keep the lines of communication open. Again, just a quick little taste of a program. Hope you enjoyed it. Please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for your time.